Andy Farrell will name his team tomorrow, but we are waiting on important injury news on two key players, Blair Kinghorn and Mac Hansen. Let's cross live to Brisbane now and speak to former Lion and Wales international Dan Biggar. Dan, great to be chatting to you this morning. Do we have an update on those two players?
Hi, Julia. Great to see you. It's been a beautiful day in Brisbane this afternoon, 24, 25 degrees. Injury update on those two players. It doesn't look overly positive. You'd expect. I think Blair Kinghorn went off early doors and looked to be in a bit of discomfort. I think him and Mac Hansen, you look at, there's so little preparation time for these Lions tours and these test matches. I think what we're hearing is that they're going to miss probably Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of the training week, which puts them at a huge disadvantage. So you'd expect them maybe not to be fit for Saturday for the first test, but we all know that this is a three-match series and you don't want to be sort of risking players for the sake of it in week one when it's not absolutely vital. So you'd expect the pair of them probably to just fall short in terms of timing-wise to make the game, but should both be back by test 2 and test 3.
And Dan, you've been there as a player. How will the squad be feeling ahead of that team announcement? Do you think they've got an inkling on whether they're in or out at this stage?
I think there'll be some players who will be fairly confident of being in or out. I think you manage your expectations a little bit on these tours. I think the real sort of the sleepless nights and the anxious feelings will be for the guys who are kind of 50-50 or really in the balance. And I think it's incredible because 4 years ago it feels like a lifetime ago because you're almost putting your 4 years' work or your lifetime's work or your sportsman's work in the hands of somebody else, and those hands are Andy Farrell. And you sort of think, he's in charge of your destiny. Whatever you've done on the tour, whatever you've done previously, it's kind of one selection meeting that's going to go for you or against you. And it's just until you hear your name being read out, you never fully believe that your name is going to be read out. So those players will be anxious. They'll be in those hotel rooms just sort of itching to get down to that team meeting to know one way or another so they know their role, whether they're preparing the team or getting ready for one of the biggest days of their lives.
Yeah, Dan, just put yourself in Andy Farrell's shoes for a moment. Who's your starting 15 for Saturday's first test?
So I picked a team after the game last Saturday, and I think I've gone, so if we look at it from 15 down to front row, I've gone Blair Kinghorn, but I don't think he's going to be fit. So I'd imagine Hugo Keenan, who showed up really well against the AUNZ side in Adelaide, I'd expect him to come in for that. I've gone James Lowe and Tommy Freeman on the wings. I think they sort of were the front runners. You expect them to be named. Then the interesting one for me is the centres. I've gone Hugh Jones and Bundy Aki, but Gary Ringrose injury may force him to sort of think, does he want to go combinations? Does he want the Scottish pairing of Sione Tuipulotu and Hugh Jones, who understand each other's games so well? Does he want them in tandem? And that may force him into a last-minute change, considering that they're both available. The 9 and 10 pick themselves world-class operators in Finn Russell and Jameson Gibson-Park. Back row is another area where I think that's the most up for grabs. I've gone Tyke Byrne at 6, Jack Morgan at 7 and Jack Conan at 8. Conan gives you balance. Jack Morgan's been absolutely unbelievable on tour. And I think Tyke Byrne gives you another line-out option, another Jacqueline option, and someone that Andy Farrell knows and trusts can deliver in big moments and big games. Maro Itoje, of course, at captain. I think that was the one thing that probably people expected. Who's going to partner him? I've gone Joe McCarthy because I just think he's been impressive and the most standout of the locks on tour. And then the front row, as good as you'll see, Genge, Sheehan and Tyke Furlong. So I'd expect that team. That's what I've picked. And I don't think it'll be a million miles, 1 or 2 changes, maybe back row and centres, but I'd expect it to be somewhere near that.
Of course, the Welshman Jack Morgan had to be in the back row, an incredible player. Whether or not he makes that 15, we wait to see. In terms of what we've seen so far on tour, who's impressed you in particular, and who's impressed you to the extent that they've maybe put themselves right in contention to be in that starting 15, who perhaps before the tour we weren't suspecting to be the case?
I think if you look at what were the questions on tour before tour, and I think it was somebody who's going to partner Maro Itoje. I think Maro Itoje is named as captain, so you expect he's going to play in all 3 test matches. But the question was who's going to partner him, and I think that was kind of a bit of a straight shootout on tour. And I think Joe McCarthy's been super good in terms of just his aggression, his physicality, his ability to win collisions, get a load of the dirty work stuff done. So I think from his point of view, he's been the best of the bunch of second rows. I think Scott Cummins has been great. I think Tyke Byrne, do you play in back row, second row? But I've been really impressed with Joe McCarthy, and I think just someone who's really mixed his game up and counters to what Maro does in terms of they're a good partnership. And the other person, and this is I think everybody had kind of expected Finn Russell to start at 10 on tour, but sometimes that comes with a lot of pressure when you're especially being in that number 10 position, the playmaker, the sort of the big player. But I think his performances have been absolutely brilliant, and he cemented his place as one of the best 10s in the game and the Lions 10. And I just think that he's shown how important he is to this Lions team, into the way that they click, the way that they play, the variation that they have. And that's not an easy job for someone who's favourite for the position to come in and back it up and give the rest of the team confidence. So I think he's been someone who's clearly well known and not so much of a surprise, but someone who's gone about their business really well on tour as well.
Let's talk about Owen Farrell, because I know you were quite sceptical about his call-up. Would it shock you if he was involved on Saturday?
It wouldn't shock me if he was involved, and I think it's quite interesting how people have sort of said that I've been quite sceptical. I was sceptical more of the timing and the replacement for Elliot Daly, the positions he covers, and it's amazing how everybody's got the opinion now that Owen Farrell should be in the team and things. But 8th of May, when the squad was announced, nobody said a word, and everyone just thought, okay, Owen Farrell's not going to be here. So everyone's changed their opinions quite a lot now, and seems to be jumping on a little bit of the bandwagon. But for me, Owen Farrell is a world-class player. Nobody's questioned his ability as a world-class player, his character, his temperament, his CV, etc. And the Lions would be great to have him in the squad, whether it's on the bench, starting, whatever. I just think that if he'd have been picked from the start, they could have worked his game time up. They could have played him against Argentina, played him against the Force, and just almost squashed everything and just said, look, we want this character in the squad. Nobody was saying that we haven't got enough leaders or we haven't got enough experience in the group at the start. So I think from a timing point of view, it was a strange time to have called Owen Farrell up, but I think he's a world-class operator. He looked really good on Saturday night against the AUNZ side in Adelaide, and it was a nice game for him to come in and just get some nice touches. And like I said, I think his role may not be this weekend, but it may well be for sort of, if it's 1-1 going into Sydney, or if it's 1-0 the Wallabies after Saturday in Suncorp, his role could become even more important. So for me, it's kind of like, I was never sceptical of Owen Farrell because everyone knows who he is and what he's about. More so the timing in terms of the replacement for Elliot Daly.
Dan, the Telegraph are reporting that Owen Farrell is likely to miss out on the 23. We await the team announcement eagerly tomorrow, and it looks like Marcus Smith will be the option off the bench. Does that make sense considering what Marcus Smith can add as a finisher?
Yeah, never believe what you read in the papers is what I would say to that. You just never know with Lions selection. Honestly, it really could be a flip of a coin. It makes, in terms of Marcus being on the bench, I think that's what Marcus got on tour for. I don't think Andy Farrell sees Marcus as a starter at 10 or 15, but what he does have is that ability to sit on a bench and cover 10, cover 15, to allow the other pieces of the jigsaw to move around, with him just slotting in for 20 minutes, or if the game breaks up, or if they need a game changer, if they're 5 points behind going into the last 15, 20 minutes, do you want someone who can create something out of nothing, a spark, a bit of moment of brilliance when the game is a little bit looser, to just create something, but also have that ability to know that, okay, you're covering 2 or 3 positions with Marcus on the bench and you don't have to rejig everything. So I think that would make sense from that point of view, but you flip it and say, well, if you pay Owen Farrell on the bench, he covers 10 and 12. So it's kind of a little bit, where do you go in that sense? But I think given the injuries that we've just spoken about to Blair Kinghorn and potentially Mac Hansen, I think Marcus on the bench seems the more logical solution for this week in particular.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about the team and the starting 15. Let's talk about the game itself. What do you think is going to give the Lions the edge over Australia, and how confident are you of a Lions victory?
First of all, I think I'm pretty confident of a Lions victory, although Australia have got a brilliant record at Suncorp and always play well. And speaking to a few of the Wallabies this week, they always they love coming to Brisbane, they love the city, they love the stadium, and everyone kind of gets behind them a little bit more in Brisbane because of the record that they've got there. Where have the Lions got a huge advantage? For me, you look at the reports being that Tom Liner I think it's his first start at 10 for the Wallabies. It looks like it's going to be on Saturday afternoon or Saturday evening. And I think 9 and 10, you look at the artillery that both teams have got in terms of Ikitau, Swahili in the centres, Tom Wright at fullback, Valentini, Skelton, these guys. The artillery that they can both boast is quite impressive and quite even. Front rows in particular, Angus Bell, Taniela Tupou. But where I think the big difference between the two teams is at 9 and 10. And you look at the world-class proven, experienced players in Gibson Park and Finn Russell against, Jake Gordon and Tate McDermott and Nick White are excellent players, but I wouldn't quite put them in the class of those two, or certainly Gibson Park and Mitchell and Ben White's category. So I think that's where I think the Wallabies are certainly up against the 8 ball a little bit, and I think they'll need their 9 and 10 to produce probably some of the best rugby that they've produced in terms of Super Rugby and international shirts for them to stand a chance on Saturday. But look, I think everybody's writing the Wallabies off, and whenever you write the Wallabies off or write Australia off in sport, especially in their own country, it's a dangerous thing to do. And this Wallabies team with an unbelievably good coach in Joe Schmidt and unbelievably good players in terms of the back row, the centres, etc., will come firing at Suncorp on Saturday evening. But I expect the Lions to just pip it and then go on to probably claim the series later on in the match.